For Global Business Update, it's time for Michael Wilson. Joins us now from London. Great to have you, Michael. Pleasure to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's have a look at the Far East markets first of all, and a rise in Japanese inflation. Now, normally we don't like rises in inflation, but this is an indication that Japan's economy may be getting underway again. What they've been suffering from, as I keep saying, is probably a decade at least of deflation. So seeing a bit of that. China kept its loan prime rate on hold, and that's helping the markets very, very generally. It's an average increase of around about 1.5%. Core inflation in Japan up 2.8% from a year ago. The Japanese yen, though, is hovering close to its weakest level since 1998, and the authorities there are hinting, I say hinting, at taking action to stem the currency's decline. China's economy may have done well in August, but apparently, according to an ever-growing queue of economists, the outlook doesn't look good. UBS has downgraded its full-year forecast from 3 to 2.7%. Basically, it's the zero-COVID policy, which is, as they put it, stomped on human investor confidence. That's according to the China Economist Intelligence Corporate Network. And Goldman Sachs are saying that the next key level to watch for the Chinese currency is 7.2 against the dollar. So basically, a lot of people now wondering or asking the kind of probable questions about where the Chinese economy is actually going. As far as global economies are concerned, India, according to the chairman of Hinduja Group, this is Ashok Hinduja, has said that India is the best bet in the global economy. US, according to him, UK and Europe facing for recession, problems in China. India, he says, politically well settled. Yeah, I mean, no doubt that it is. But it still has its problems, and one of those, I think, is going to be a reckoning for buying Russian oil at a discount as well. So all is not, I think, as it seems in India right now. As far as the United States is concerned, stock futures up very, very slightly. Remember that the Fed kicks off its meeting today and announces its decision tomorrow. Futures tied to the Dow up about 49 points. It's likely that they will get a 0.75%, 75 basis points interest rate rise there. We've talked about this on a regular kind of basis. I don't think there are going to be any surprises tomorrow. The Fed is getting fairly aggressive. And the US markets got off to a cautious start as a result of that. And that will continue, I think, until they get some kind of result. Just referring to the UK, we get our mini. I don't know why it's called a mini budget. It's not a big budget, but then again, the amount of money involved is massive. Mini budget on Friday. Retailers and now pub owners are looking to the Chancellor to try and help them, to try to help the cost of business increase. And now we're approaching this kind of run up to Christmas. Yes, I know it's a long way away, but this is how retailers work, and this is seen as a very crucial run up to state support for Christmas, and also therefore for businesses and so on. It's suspected that support, the detail, that won't be ready till November. It may well be backdated. How on earth, though, as a business, you plan for things that may or may not happen a month ahead and may or may not be backdated, defeats me, I have to say. But that's where we are at the moment. And we're going to get the hard on the heels of the Fed decision tomorrow on Thursday. We get the decision from the Bank of England, and most people are expecting what they describe as a hefty rise in interest rates. The energy cap bill costs £150 billion. Now, according to the rules of inflation, which, as I keep saying, measures the rate of the rise of prices, that kind of figure will drop out of the index, but it's expected that there'll be a 0.75% rise on Thursday. Interest rates peaking at 4.5% next year. Bank of England, the reason for feeling is this: central banks are doing the same kind of thing. ECB, not quite at the same level yet, but certainly raising by 0.75% the last time it met. And the Fed, as I said, may deliver its third successive 0.75% rise. As far as oil is concerned, crude pressure really just under pressure from, that people are looking at this market and thinking, well, central banks are raising interest rates, so growth will fall. But I would advise you, if I may, to look out for Dr. Copper. Goldman Sachs, apart from most people, have been saying that it's due for a rise. I think when copper starts to rise, you can start thinking about maybe the start of a recession actually fading, because copper is a crucial metal for semiconductors and everything to do with construction, infrastructure, or smarter parts of construction and infrastructure. So it'd be worthwhile, I think, keeping an eye on copper. That is the global view this morning.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Copper is always a bellwether, so we'll look out for those numbers. But two things. Number one, 150 billion now, you said the numbers are. The Economist was projected about 120, 130 billion. But the thing about it is it's a freeze for a couple of years. It doesn't still solve the problem of pricing in the energy sector. After those years and frittering away all of those cash, then what happens next? You see, because the problem is the British government always likes to just kick the can down the road. Hopefully Liz Truss feels that maybe she might not be re-elected then. I don't know what the case is. A lot of people are also scared about the way the interest rates will rise, from the Fed and the knock-on effect in the world. As we speak today, the pound sterling is all-time low. What will be the knock-on effect if the Fed does something unthinkable with their rates, the thinker with their rates? Because when you look at it, midterm is just around the corner. And Joe Biden is quite very bullish. I know the Fed has got some level of independence, but Joe Biden's America is a bullish America now. And they can do, and in Nigerian parlance, they can do and undo. That's what they say in Nigeria. It's a Nigerian phrase.
Yeah, I mean, you say 150 billion, maybe it's 130 billion, maybe it's 170 billion. I don't know, really. I mean, as far as kicking the cans down the road, I would just say I'd much rather talk about how far the can has been kicked down the road. Perhaps when we talk again on Monday after the mini budget, because everybody's looking towards it as some sort of statement. I mean, there's no question that we are seeing really fundamental changes in the UK economy right now. I think that what this present government is hoping, as I keep saying, is that tax cuts now will cause growth, and the trickle down and all the rest of it. Whether you believe in that, whether you believe in the Laffer curve and all that stuff and so on. But that's what they're hoping. So that they're hoping in a few years' time. And I suspect the energy price will probably surprise a lot of us. I don't necessarily see it gradually increasing and gradually going up. It may well change. It all depends on the war between Russia and Ukraine. It could well be that one of the off-ramps that Putin has is to start restoring oil and gas to Europe, which would make a tremendous change to the calculations. It wouldn't solve anything, of course, but it would make an enormous change. We just don't know how that's going to be. So I get you. There is a bit of an element of kicking the can down the road, but I'd much rather sort of talk about that after we've seen where this mini budget is actually going. And in fact, if you really want to get technical, I suppose we should wait also until we've got an idea of how business is going to be helped as well, possibly by a cut in corporation tax and also possibly by a cut in business rates as well. Who knows? I mean, that's the kind of uncertainty that we face at the moment.
Well, Michael, two quick things. You talked about copper. That's fine. I mean, considering its importance. But I wanted to ask you about coal rush. Now that gas has become very expensive, many countries in Europe are now looking for alternative in coal. There's a coal rush. And countries like Tanzania and Mozambique are benefiting because European countries are now paying top dollar for coal. The only problem with coal is its polluting effect. So where does this leave the global climate plan? And what do you think about that? And then you mentioned India. Well, in India, there is an interesting story coming out today from Reliance Industries. Mukesh Ambani, Indian billionaire, now putting, we're told, a succession plan in place. And there's so much talk about intergenerational wealth transfer, about the strong messaging effect of what the Reliance Industries billionaire is trying to do, and also about how this represents a battle against patriarchy. Some of those things they teach in business schools about, succession planning. What are your thoughts on that?
As far as India is concerned, I think you said it yourself: intergenerational wealth transfer. Really, I think we've seen how bad that is, and you're absolutely right. The training at business school, presumably, is that sort of succession plan that doesn't work. And also, successions are very, very difficult to do because remember, it sounds quite good keeping it in the family, but members of the family marry, and then there are cousins, and then there are brothers and sisters of those cousins, and the whole thing actually falls to pieces. I don't know whether you watched the series; it's very good. I think it's on Netflix. The Succession thing, loosely based, presumably on the Murdoch family. But the key with that, the key with succession is what happens when the alpha male or indeed female actually dies, disappears. Then I think you see the problems. Much better to have a solid industrial base. As far as coal's concerned, I think, well, I was saying yesterday that a lot of the not necessarily coal, but a lot of the fossil fuel companies are attracting a lot of investment on the London junior market. Yeah, coal's dirty. Coal is polluting. I think that had the people who sat round at that COP26 conference in what was it, only November or October last year, were now faced with what we're facing right now, I think a lot of those would change. I suspect that those kind of climate concerns are slightly on the back foot right now, as we struggle for energy over what probably will be a fairly cold and unhappy winter. That's my feeling about it. And the second thing about coal is it's not an immediate answer because you have to build or indeed rebuild or take out of cold storage the infrastructure that was actually making that work towards energy, and that is not necessarily easy to do. So there may be a lot of coal around at the moment. Yes, I think the market probably is increasing for it, but it's a long way off replacing anything right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael Olsen. Thank you.
All right, and so now for business across the African continent, Rotus joins us. Rotus, there's a lot to talk about.
A whole lot. Let's jump into it. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rafai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yes, so LCCI, remember Peter Obi postponed his chat. It was rescheduled. He took it, had it yesterday. Here's a short highlights of the chat yesterday. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry held a private sector economic forum on September the 19th to review the economic agenda of the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi. In his opening remarks, Dr. Michael Olawale Cole, president of the LCCI, lamented the impact of oil theft on Nigeria and wondered out loud who is behind it.
The Nigerian economy has been inundated with a myriad of problems, among which we all know things like the oil theft. And we're asking questions at the chamber. Why is it impossible for government to resolve this issue of oil theft?
Dr. Ayo Teriba, economist and chair of the LCCI Economic and Statistics Committee, laid out the points he wanted Peter Obi to address.
Citizens yearn for the attainment of each of four economic outcomes. Number one, liquidity. The second concern of the populace is stability. The third concern is growth. For example, of income, of exports, of employment, of prosperity, of equality. And the fourth fundamental desire of the populace is harmony.
Peter Obi said insecurity would be his first order of priority if he becomes president.
And aggressively deal with this issue of security. Insecurity is number one thing that is impacting Nigerian economic growth today. And you need to deal with it as quickly as possible. And I assure you, when I said I'm going to be in charge, that is stopped on my desk, we will deal with it decisively.
He also said multi-level policing aided by technology would be part of his administration.
You need to overhaul the entire security architecture. Having multi-level policing, federal, state, community.
The Labour Party presidential candidate answered Dr. Olawale Cole's open question on the culprits behind oil theft, saying people in government are behind it.
Issue of oil theft. Who is stealing oil? People in government. Period. Nobody here can steal oil. Nobody here can steal oil. For you to steal oil, a ship has to come in and load it, and Navy has to approve it. So it's simple. There's no way under my watch we will not find solution to oil theft.
Peter Obi also said fuel subsidies are riddled with corruption, something he would address. And he also said that refineries were the answer to Nigeria's issues and they should be sold crude oil in Naira.
50% of the subsidy is corruption. That will be dealt with decisively. We have to stop dollarization of our economy, especially the domestic economy. Under my watch, the emphasis on dollar, if you must operate here, you must charge Naira.
The election season is heating up and the Nigerian economy is on the front burner. The Nigerian people will continue to pay attention and dissect the plans and proposals of the candidates hoping to steer Africa's largest economy towards prosperity. Rodos Odiri, Arise News.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, look, that was a, 2-hour chat where he just stood there and was just taking questions from panelists and also written questions from the audience. And, I mean, that was just a snapshot. I mean, there was so much. We tried to summarize as much as we could with what he discussed yesterday. So, first of all, there's no manifesto. We have to put that out there. He addressed that. He said that, well, it's easy to get a bunch of economists to write down a manifesto, but he says, quotes, everybody here is recording what I'm saying, so just take me at my word. Of course, he said
he needs to write one.
Well, he said address insecurity. They won.
Needs to get one out.
We already have that overhauling the security apparatus. Ahead, power. He said it will liberalize the transmission parts of the value chain and improve gas to power supply and oil theft, asset registry. So he had a question from one of the panelists on underutilized assets. Remember, we talked about how doing Salami said about
their capital.
Exactly, 900 billion or so. So he says put up an asset registry where you will, itemize these assets of government and decide whether to sell them off or what to do. I think one of the most interesting things he did say was this matter of selling oil to refining. Oh yeah, so he also, of course, we highlighted this, that people in government are the ones stealing oil and so on. So he put that at the feet of government. But the crude oil sales in Naira to refineries, he also touched on the exchange rate as well, a whole bunch of other things, and inflation. I think that's very interesting. He's taking a position on that now and saying that that is what should take place. So I think if you look at that, selling crude oil to refineries in Naira, this is a commodity that is priced in dollars, right? So the Naira price has to be the equivalent of the per barrel dollar cost on international market. So that means the exchange rate has to be transparent, and you have to probably have a single exchange rate. And then for the refineries that are buying the crude in Naira, that is an input cost for them at whatever the exchange rate is. They now, of course, have to sell it at a margin down to the downstream sector and so on, as far as refined petroleum products are concerned. So I say that to say that the conversation around people who believe that if you have working refineries and that the price of crude, or rather price of petrol that we're paying now, will remain at this level, the cost input fundamentals don't support that. So that's, part of the conversation.
So I'm eager to jump on a lot of things. How? I think that's the problem we always have with all those candidates. And please, Mr. Peter Obi, you need to write a manifesto. We need a document we can hold you by. We've heard all of your engagements. You've said a lot of great things, but put out the document, please, as this campaign starts. Secondly, number one, he talked about power sector. Liberalizing transmission, how is he going to do it?
He said privatization.
But they've done privatization before.
So he said, if you look at the value chain, he said that the generation and distribution arms of the power value chain are privatized. So you've got the gencos and you've got the discos.
Yeah.
But he says the most critical part is transmission,
Yeah.
which is still, the Transmission Corporation of Nigeria is still under the government.
It's still under
he wants to now put that in with the privatization along with distribution.
That means, is it going to have multiple grids, regional grids? Because if you want to privatize it, then you should be able to have independent nucleated grids.
That's Atiku's plan,
in
right?
certain areas. So is he going to have that? But how is he also going to pay for the cost? And the real problem in all of this that I expected him to say that he didn't say is cost-reflective tariff.
Right.
Why is it that the likes of Scottish Power, EDF, and all the big boys are not coming to Nigeria? Because of the tariff. You can't tell people you've privatized something and you say they should give that same power that they are produced at X amount at a certain tariff.
Right, right.
That's why they would rather go to other countries rather than come here. So he's not said anything as regards that. So are you going to allow the full whims and caprices of capitalism enter the sector? He's not stated that.
What he did say, and again, this was a 2-hour chat, he did say that the government should not be involved in the power sector. He used Egypt and said that they should use
the truth is,
guarantees,
the
right?
truth is,
but so there's just a point. The thing is that I think the logical conclusion is that if he's saying that government should be completely out of power and you're privatizing the entire balance, then the tariffs will be cost reflective. But he needs to say it. He needs to say it.
You need to say that if the tariffs are going to be cost reflective, because you can't just say, okay, yeah, Egypt is doing this and all of that, which is valid and granted. But the truth is, are you going to be able to bear the cost, the attendant cost, capitalism and full liberalization of the sector will also bring? Are you going to factor that in your agreement and your arguments?
Right.
Let's put that in there. Also, he said so many things. He had multi-layer policing. We like the rhetoric of that and all of that. So how are you going to still rejig the architecture? How much are you going to spend on the defense? All right. Can you put up the slides again? Because I mean, there's so many things that I wanted to interrogate. We don't get enough time on this show, to be able to.
Let's put those
if the president can help us put up the slide. So that's another one.
All right.
He's finally be able to get a position on subsidy that is going to remove subsidy and all of that.
Organized crime.
But can he also do the research work on the attendant risk of removing, subsidy, what is going to be, how he's going to reinvest the money made and all of that. He talked about refineries and all of that. He's going to look at regulatory framework. The question is, how is he going to look at regulatory framework when a regulatory framework doesn't support international IOCs coming into the sector? So there's a lot of house
there is.
in it. And that's all of this starts from he has to give us a written manifesto.
Yep. And that's why we highlighted that.
Sorry, Dr. Batemi.
Politicians write manifestos again and again in Nigeria.
Okay.
But there's also the question of commitment. There's a question of trust. There's a question of the determination, the political will to follow through. If we were looking for a collection of political manifestos, we would have a huge pile.
Right.
But what we'll be asking for from our political leaders is that sincerity. If you get in there, will you be consistent? Are you going to keep your promises? After all, some people have spent 8 years in government. It didn't take them 3 years to start disowning their own manifestos, which we dare engage us. So going forward, we would like to see, transparency in terms of this social contract with the people. That's the first point. The second point is as follows, which is to again commend the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry for putting this event together. They've already engaged with the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. Now is the candidate of the Labour Party.
Yep.
We hope that they will also remain consistent in this regard and engage with others and not exclude anybody, because that was an issue.
Guess who we have on the Global Business Report? Omoyele Sowore.
Yes.
We have him today. So he's going to talk about his economic
That's
agenda.
That's a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
But also I expect that platforms like SCCI
right.
will also open up the field
Yeah.
and engage everybody, because we need to listen to everyone, to be sure that those who want to be president of Nigeria even understand what the basic issues are. As for Peter Obi's presentation yesterday, well, I think he more or less covered the field in terms of content. He was able to identify the problems in Nigeria. Leadership failure, institutional weakness, lack of capacity, lack of competitiveness. And he said our country today is bad news. Many people will agree with him that, in fact, Nigeria is bad news.
Right.
To people who are having to deal with high inflation, staggering inflation, and who are having to deal with, galloping unemployment rates and the pandemic poverty.
Empty pockets.
Of
Empty
empty
pockets.
pockets,
Famously.
as I call the phrase. But then
Yes.
he has tried to offer some solutions. He wants to sell off the refineries, I think he said so, which is also something we've heard before. But those refineries, are they even sellable?
That is a good
Who
question.
will buy them, except you sell them as scrap? Okay, he wants to review the value chain in the energy sector to make sure that electricity is available. Okay, there's an electricity roadmap, in place that has been there since the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Maybe he will be able to do it, considering the fact that electricity is important for manufacturing, for productivity, for a lot of other things. He says he would put in place an industrial revolution. Okay? Well, industrial revolution, I'm sure we need industrial revolution. But how is he going to deal with all the other headwinds, all the problematic factors? He says subsidy will be removed because he says oil subsidy is organized crime.
Yep.
Yes, we all believe so, that it's organized crime. But under the Buhari administration, the evil there has been postponed. Who is that man who is coming tomorrow to remove that fuel subsidy, and who is going to display the kind of confidence that William Ruto displayed in Kenya? Immediately he took over right from the moment of inauguration. So the challenges ahead do not lie in the rhetoric. Every politician will come and give the rhetoric. There are enough idle economists around who will help you to put all the ideas together.
Dr. Why now? Why are you being so hard?
Our economy is not idle. Most of them not idle.
I don't think so. I think that's a hit on our economy. I speak up for them, Doctor.
Where there are voodoo economists.
No, I speak
so
up for
they
them.
put these things together. They give you all the right phrases, and you can go there. But the taste of the pudding is in the eating. Whoever becomes president of Nigeria, has serious issues to address. But it's good to continue to listen to them, and more platforms should give them the opportunity to talk, so that all of us can begin to discuss issues rather than there's this problem in this party or that problem. The big problem is the Nigerian problem that needs to be solved. Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.